to him. He is playing, in my eyes, is that he's an MVP player, no doubt about it. And I wouldn't want any other quarterback on our football team.
Yeah, well, see, here's what I would say about that little, I don't know, tit for tat deal that went on a year ago with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers. Was there really anything there? Or were people watching the body language and kind of saying that Matt LaFleur is in for one because at the end, Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers didn't see eye to eye. And when they won that first game, Aaron Rodgers and the team celebrated with Petman, the defensive coordinator, by dumping the water buckets on him.
Right.
So is that why we took that? Then they drafted a quarterback in the first round of this year's past draft in Jordan Love, and we said it's the end of Aaron Rodgers. Is that why? Because clearly I don't follow it that way. I've always felt like Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to get a lot of, especially from quarterbacks, you're not getting, I don't like this guy. You got to read between the lines with QBs because they want this mystery out there about who they are, what their personalities are, and I'm the leader of the team. So Aaron Rodgers is never going to say, I love the coach, he's the greatest ever, and he's never going to say, I don't like this guy, get him out of here. So people try to source through it. Then they go out there and they draft a quarterback instead of a receiver that most people thought, they need a receiver. They only got Devontae Adams. If you really watch the Green Bay Packers, they had receivers. They just kept getting hurt. They had receivers. Whether it was St. Brown, whether it was Devontae, whether it was Lazar, they had guys. And so everybody just assumed that they didn't get along. Well, I think people are changing their tunes now. And now you hear the head coach come out and say he don't want any other quarterback. Is he lying to us?
I would say no. Jay, you have an NBA comp here that you could sort of form with Rodgers.
I just feel like they are the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL, right? All their guys are homegrown. When you think about, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, guys that have grew up in the organization, right? Guys that they have drafted in the second round. Hey, these are our guys long-term, very similar to the Spurs. They're not a flashy team, with the exception of Aaron Rodgers, who will make a flashy play every once in a while. That's typically how the Spurs won their championships. They have an incredible fan base. They're always in the mix, and they're not in a large market. I feel like they've won championships. They have 4 Super Bowls. The San Antonio Spurs have 5 NBA titles. It just feels like there are so many similar comparisons, and each and every year they just win. Like you wonder how they do it. The question is, that they need more wide receivers. What's up with their defense? They still find ways to win. It just seems like they're the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL.
Well, that's a good comp if you look at another.
I feel like
sport.
that you're setting that up like to knock it down a little bit. You're like, well, that's an okay comp.
No, I'm saying that's a good comp. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not like.
You're not excited about that?
No, I guess for me.
Your whole body energy just kind of just went out the window.
No,
well, that's a decent comp.
Because I find myself sometimes, even though I'm in this with y'all, whatever y'all want to call this, sports talk radio, media, whatever y'all call it with y'all name tags on the bottom say media, I get it. I'm in it with y'all, but sometimes I remove myself from it and I look at it from a player's objective and perspective, and I look at it and I say, I always expected this from them. Yeah. It's not like I never went into the season saying Green Bay gonna be good or Green Bay's gonna be. No, Green Bay's going to be fine. And so I'm not the type of person, as we always talk about, Jay, on and off line, I don't follow the narrative of what everybody else do. When everybody else starts saying, I'm like, y'all just doing that because somebody else is doing it. I never ever thought that they needed another receiver. I just never thought that. I always thought a guy who goes, I think he was, 26-3 last year, touchdown to interception ratio?
Yeah, like 26-4, something like
26-3,
that.
26-4. A guy that does that and takes his team to the NFC Championship game. I mean, like, with a first-year head coach, like, come on. Who in their right mind would want to remove Aaron Rodgers from their team despite what diva-ish he is? Despite it. if he's a diva or not, despite it.
I think one thing that Jay really brings up, which is instructive, is that, Key, you know this, and that is the old Packers general manager, Ron Wolf.
Yes, Ron.
Right? To your point, Jay said homegrown, right? That was his strategy. Yes,
every year.
They did sign the late, great Reggie White, which is one of the greatest free agent signings in NFL history. Free agency a little bit different back then than it is now. But the fact is they had a plan, and it worked for them. And even though Ron Wolf has departed that particular position, they have stuck to that plan. To your point, the narrative is go sign free agents. Let's get splashy in the draft. Let's hoard all these draft picks. Let's trade up. Same thing with the Spurs. We are who we are. We're not going to get a bunch of free agents. We have our system. We're going to do it. So whether it worked in the NBA to the tune of 5 NBA championships or to the tune of the Green Bay Packers, when you have a plan and it's working, tunnel vision is not the worst thing in the world.
And what Ron did for many years is he would draft a quarterback every single year because he would feel that there's not enough of them. And he would wind up maybe moving them, trading them, so he has assets and pieces there. And people just, it's so funny, though, the world that we live in now is just like as soon as something happens, the first thing people, this is what's going on. It's like, no, that's not really what's going on. Not at all.
Well, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And like I said before, as long as you have Aaron Rodgers, he makes things happen, man. He's the queen on the chessboard. He can move in so many different directions, and he's a game changer.
Could you imagine the Green Bay Packers without Aaron Rodgers? The only reason why you could imagine the Green Bay Packers without Brett Favre in the end is because you finally saw Aaron Rodgers. But you couldn't imagine the Green Bay Packers in the end without seeing Aaron Rodgers. Once you saw him, it was like, okay, I get it. I understand. I see why they moved on from Brett. Because even when they moved on from Brett was still cooking at that point. He just was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I don't know if I'm coming. I don't know if I'm going.
Right.
And so it was like, okay, well, they're tired of dealing with that. They moved on to the guy they drafted in the first round. But we don't really know what that guy is. Oh, we do know what he is now. Smart move by him. Smart move by him. You know that Jordan Love ain't nowhere near close to Aaron Rodgers.
Indeed. Two things there. Rodgers said, I'm not worried about who they draft because nobody can beat me out anyway, which I love that swagger. And the second
same way I always felt too.
Such
right?
a boss.
Love the confidence. And the second thing, to Jay's point, I just actually thought of this, and I think it's just so interesting that he chose the Spurs, right? Throughout the entire Spurs dynasty, and I understand there's Kawhi there on the end. I get it when Kawhi was the NBA Finals MVP in their last championship. But for the majority of the time that Coach Pop has been there, it has been two guys, Duncan and Robinson. And for the majority of the time here in the last 25 years for the Packers, it has been two guys, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. So I think that comparison is very apt.
And they getting ready at some point. They're getting ready to extend this dude.
Oh, no doubt.
They're going to extend
He's going to play into his 40s.
Legendary.
Yeah, he's going to pick up another $250 million real quick from him. Watch what I tell you. It's coming. It's coming. I smell it right around the corner, Jay. They're going to turn it in with no problem at all because who wouldn't want this dude, man?
I agree.
I would take him with his left arm because it's probably good too.
I don't know if it's as good as Mahomes, but we'll have to wait and see. I would certainly give Aaron Rodgers the benefit of the doubt. Keyshawn, J. Will Zubin, presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. Speaking of the Packers, on the way, we'll be joined by a former Packers center and a Super Bowl champion all in one. He'll join us